Hey everyone, it's Emily Fox. Today's video is going to be all about the big books that were worth it and the ones that weren't, because sometimes they shouldn't have been 500 pages plus, because that's what I consider a big book. We all have different definitions. It doesn't really matter. At the end of the day, I have been trying to conquer my fear of big books actually a couple years ago. I did 2 years in a row. I was reading a big book every month. And I was trying to figure out which ones were worth it, the ones that weren't, were they worth the hype? Because a lot of them were very, very popular. And overall, I enjoyed myself. I feel like I'm not afraid of them anymore, although I've been reading them a bit less lately, but it's because I haven't been reading as much fantasy and sci-fi as usual. So I think that's mainly the reason. Hoping to fix that next year. But I am surrounded by a lot of books right now. I don't know where all of them are, so I'm going to be putting them on the screen. Less than a month. In less than a month, I should have my whole library done and ready, but for now, this will do. So let's start with some of the ones that were worth it, in my opinion. The first one is The Priory of the Orange Tree. I wanted to specifically give this one a shout out because one, it's 900 pages. It is a chunky one. I actually don't own this one. I need to because it was so much fun, but also it's a standalone fantasy, adult fantasy. I feel like it's not something that exists enough. And every time someone tells me like, oh, there's this one you should try, I'm like, no, it became a duology. I know about this one, but now there's the second one. And I don't like whenever authors do that. If it came out as a standalone, leave it be. With that said, this one does have a prequel coming out. But I'm biased. You're biased. We're all biased. So in this one, you're following a lot of characters. I feel like there's a lot of world building, and it essentially is a battle between good and evil. Good classic fantasy, right? There's also some LGBTQ plus representation, which I enjoyed. I found myself really, really absorbed into the story, really wanting to see the characters succeed, or at least some of them. And my main complaints with this one would be that, one, the ending is a bit quick. I feel like whenever you get to the epic battle, no spoilers, but it was a bit quick. And also, like, some of the characters, when they really die, I didn't feel like I cared because it happened so quickly. But otherwise, I really, really enjoyed it. I feel like the world building was heavy, so if that's not your thing, that's not going to be a book for you. But I just felt fully absorbed. The magic system was really interesting. Frankly, I'm happy that the author is bringing out more from this world because I want to know more about the magic system and the witches that we're like barely getting a little sneak peek of. So fantastic book, was worth the 900 pages. Again, only if you really enjoy world building. But if you do, absolutely worth it. I cannot wait to read more from the same world from the author. So actually it's coming out next year, and I think it was like 500, 600 pages. So it was going to be another big one, and I'm looking forward to it. But yes, worth it. Let's talk about a duology for next one, because one book was worth it, one wasn't. And it is the Kingkiller Chronicle by Patrick Ness. The first one, the name of the win, was 662 pages, about that depending on your edition, obviously. But I really enjoyed it because I went into it with pretty low expectations. I knew it was really popular, but I feel like sometimes, you know, when it's super popular, I don't end up loving it. But I was happy with it. Magical school. The writing style was great. My main complaint was like the romance, but it wasn't really a big part of book one, and the weird tangent towards the end, I didn't really care for it. But otherwise, I felt like it was a solid, you know, coming of age kind of story. So I was happy with it and thought the 600 pages were worth it. However, the name of the win, which is like 1,000 pages, no. I think you could, even if you're a big fan of book 2, which I wasn't, for me that was a 2 stars. But even if you're a big fan, I think we can all agree that it felt very disjointed. I think you could feel like the author feeling the pressure of trying to get to book 3, because in book 1 they're announcing like, oh, this is what my life looks like. And then in book 2, like the first 300 pages are still very similar to book 1. So it's like, oh shoot, I have to, you know, get there eventually. So you're skipping pieces and it feels very disjointed. And then there's the 10 chapters, which I will not spoil, but if you've read it, you know, that were absolutely ridiculous. No, absolutely pointless. And that horrible part affected the rest of the story, really affected my enjoyment. But even beforehand, I just had lost interest because of how, again, disjointed, just random stories to bring him to that portion of the story. So I don't think it was worth 1,000 pages. I think a lot could have been done differently, and I don't think anyone is really expecting book 3 at this point. But yeah, book 1 was worth it, 4 stars for me. Book 2, not at all. 1,000 pages for that? Another one I thought was worth it was Children of Time by Adrian Tchaikovsky. I'm pretty sure this was my first book by the author. It's an adult sci-fi. I recommend it very often. I would say it's probably like a medium or like intermediate level, I should say, in terms of like sci-fi. I've done a lot of beginner's guide to sci-fi, but this would be in my medium level, in my opinion. You have the remnant of humanity that finds this planet that was used for experiments. They had sent monkeys with a special serum to accelerate evolution, and the monkeys didn't make it, but the serum did. So you have like giant intelligent spiders and humans. And it was great. I did not see the ending coming, which really wasn't expecting, and I just absolutely worth the whole 600 pages. One thing to know is that you flip-flop between the chapters between like humans and the spiders. So the chapters of spiders can be a bit strange, but I just grew more and more fascinated, and now I just call every spider I see Portia, because that's one of the names. And yeah, absolutely worth it. I did read book 2, which was also overall worth it. I didn't like it as much as book 1, and there's book 3 coming out next year. So is it next year or this year? Soon. So yes, absolutely worth it. Absolutely worth it. 600 pages, not super big, but still. The next one I want to talk about is Dune. I don't know if every edition is over 500 pages, but mine is 694, so it should be. I hated that book. I know. I'm a big sci-fi lover, but no. I bought a special fancy edition. It was very pretty, but because I was sure I was going to love it and give it 5 stars, and it was a 1 star for me, which I don't give very often, and I couldn't stand it. I found myself so bored, and like the writing was so dry. The names made no sense. I really got some backlash, especially on Goodreads, because at first I just wrote my review not thinking anyone was really going to read it, making fun of the fact the main female character is called Jessica, and then everyone else has like really complicated names, but she's called Jessica, and I'm aware of Paul, but like still Jessica, and I got so much backlash for it. But like the book was just very boring, not much happens. I did watch a movie and I did enjoy it much more than the book, so there's that. But yeah, I'm not a fan. It was not worth 700 pages. I don't recommend it. I've been vocal about it. But yes, it's not the most popular opinion, so you might want to try it. But if you find yourself bored after the first page, which was my case, even though I read the whole thing, don't feel bad about it. Just DNF it. It's fine. It's fine. You don't have to enjoy every classic sci-fi, especially classic sci-fi. So no. Can I really do a video about big books without talking about Brandon Sanderson? Come on. Brandy Sandy, 1,000 pages book is just a match. The Stormlight Archive series. I have only read the first 2 books. I'm hoping to read the 3rd one before the end of the year. I don't know if that's going to happen. It's right at the bottom of the shelf, which apparently makes everyone worried that this was going to fall, but it's not. It's just the angle. It's fine. It's fine. But book 1 was 1,000 pages. Book 2 was definitely over 1,000 pages. Love them. Love them. So good. Again, very heavy on the world building. If adult fantasy that are very slow are not your thing, you will not enjoy this series at all. Book 2, in my opinion, was better than book 1. I feel like you're starting to build up the story. It's going to be a 10-book series, so 2 books. But you already got the really fun, interesting magic system bits, a lot of political intrigue. I got really attached to the characters a lot more in book 2, and you're just starting to see the pieces fall into place. It's always like that with him, and I'm fascinated. I need to continue, but I'm trying not to rush because book 5 is only coming out in 2 years. In 2025, I think now. So I'm trying not to rush because I don't like waiting. So yes, absolutely worth it. Absolutely. I will read any adult books by him. One that was not worth it is The Secret Commonwealth by Philip Pullman. I almost wanted to include the Dark Materials trilogy by him because my edition is like 1,000 pages. It's all 3 books in one, but I think that doesn't really count, but that was worth it. This wasn't. This is the 2nd book in the companion series. The first one was a prequel. This is a sequel. My whole life growing up, I would have killed someone. Maybe not. Probably not. But I would have desperately wanted to read a book about Lyra as an adult. And I finally got that, and that book took me 3 months to read. Not because it's big, but because it was so boring. And I really hated how the author had written like a really decent female character. Like I was really enjoying it as a kid. I could relate to her. And I reread it as an adult, and I still thought it was wonderfully written. And then this book happened. Why? There's a essay scene, like completely, or I should say essay attempt scene. It's not a spoiler. I don't feel like this should ever be a spoiler. But it was badly written, made no sense about the book. I feel like the whole book made no sense. Gave me like Erin Morgenstern vibes in the sense that it's going in weird direction all the time, but never goes anywhere. So yeah, this was a waste of 600 pages. I regret reading it. Will I read book 3? Yes, because I hate myself a little bit, I think. No, but seriously, no, I don't know anyone that liked this book, but I'm sure there is. I actually decided to not include too many YA books in here because I feel like a lot of them tend to have like really big writing, like a lot of space between the lines. So like, even though they're 600 pages or over 500 pages, they're like not that long to read. So most of these are adult because of that, by the way. Another one that was worth it, actually, it's right here. So finally one I can hold. I think it might be my edition that is that chunky because it's a mass market paperback. I usually don't like them, but I found it for like 25 cents as a at a library sale, so it was worth it. My edition is 841 pages, so it's definitely over 500 pages. I'm assuming most of them will be. I really enjoyed book 1. Book 2 was okay. It was a 4 stars, but this one was a 5 stars. Don't be fooled. A lot of people start it because I've recommended it, and then you're like, why are you liking this? It's super heavy on the like financial journalism. It's just the beginning. Eventually it starts making sense. I really liked how it's mostly a murder mystery on a small island. But the murder mystery happened like years ago, and the journalist is trying to like figure it out years later. And pretty much anyone that was on the island was part of the same family or like very close to them. So like it has to be one of them. And they've been still in the life for like the last 20 years. So like someone is guilty. So I thought that was really fun. So for me, this was worth it. It took me forever to finally get to it. It had been on my shelf for years. The only reason I picked it up was because of reading challenge. But I will be reading book 2, 3, probably this month, next month, soon. And I'm looking forward to it. But yes, this was worth the 600 pages. I read this so fast, in less than a week, like a couple days. Absolutely worth it. Just get past the weird beginning. Just do it. Oh, and be warned, the main character, there's definitely like a whole projection thing. He sleeps with every female character. So let's do one that is 100% my fault. 100% my fault. I did it to myself. I know. I'm aware. Midnight Sun. I know. What did I expect? Nothing great. And it was horrible. I didn't think I could hate Edward more than I did as a kid. But oh yes, I could. Being in his head just proved to me that he's an awful person. I have to admit, as a kid, I was definitely not Team Edward. I know. I was Team Jacob. As an adult, I'm Team no one, really. I wouldn't date anyone in there, like at all. But yeah, no one is surprised here. Not worth it. Am I still going to read the next one whenever it's between Jacob and rotisserie chicken? Yes, I will. And I will make it a vlog so we can all laugh about how awful it is. And I will not say her name once. I will just make a list of other words that start with an R and we'll roll with it. But yeah, I know, I did it to myself, but this one was 658 pages of pointlessness. Ooh, another big one is Le Comte de Monte Cristo by Alexandre Dumas. My edition is so big that it's 2 books. The first one is 700 something, the second is 600 something, I think. They're big. I don't even know what the English version looks like. It's probably just as big. To be fair, back in the day, they were paid per word, so it makes sense. I would also write really big books if that was the case for me. So, not that I write anything, but this was good. I overall enjoyed it. I did think that overall it was worth being over 500 pages, probably not being over 1,000 pages. There was a little bit of fluff in there, but I still overall really enjoyed it. Epic revenge story. I was really curious to see how the ending was going to be different from the book, the movie, because I grew up watching the movie, not reading the book, and I had heard that they were completely different. And yes, I really liked the first 300 pages. Like they were 5 stars, easy. Afterwards, it went up and down a little bit, and the ending is strange in the book. I feel like I never hear anyone mention how weird the ending is, like ever. Do you ever finish it? Because it was weird. I also enjoyed the little bit of representation in there. There's a lesbian couple, and they're like seen as a good light. Like obviously it's a tiny part, side characters, but it's there. So if you ever have anyone that is saying how like, well, homophobia was normal back in the day, tell them about this book, because I do. I always do. So would recommend it, absolutely worth it. And yeah, maybe not 1,000 pages, but definitely worth at least 500. So yes, worth it. I'm not gonna make friends with this one, but Robin Hobb. Technically, the first book in the Farseer trilogy is 400 pages, but book 2 is 650, and the third one is 840, at least in the editions that I had. And no, I tried these 3 books, read them all, and then I started from the other series, Life Trade something. I couldn't finish it. I really, really thought she was going to be an all-time favorite adult fantasy author. No, I read the whole trilogy, didn't care for it. I was really not invested emotionally. It's very character driven, which I'm not against, but I feel like fantasy tends to work overall better if they're more action driven, especially with that kind of specific trope. But you have the main character who is learning magic, kinda, but not in a fun way. There's a lot of political intrigue, and in theory it should have worked for me, but it didn't. So for me, it really wasn't worth being this big, especially the last book, 800 pages for nothing to happen. I did like some of the side characters, but like, no, it wasn't worth it for me. But this is definitely going to be the unpopular opinion. Speaking of which, I was actually really surprised at how much I enjoyed The Eye of the World, which my edition has 670 pages. Classic adult fantasy book. I found myself really invested emotionally in this one compared to, first year trilogy. Matt, why do you have to always mess up everything every time? But like, if you're having that reaction, it means that you're invested, But yes, I really, really liked the characters. I like the magic system. I was really curious to see how it was going to continue. I have failed to continue the series. Still hoping that I will pick up book 2 eventually. I mean, I did start it, but DNF'd it at like 50 pages. So I will get back to it though. It's definitely on the list of things to do, but book 1 was great. Definitely a good, strong beginning to series, and it was worth all these pages. One that wasn't is Middle Game by Shannon McGuire. I really thought I was going to love this, and I was bored, and so bored. I picked up the audiobook. I was hating the narrators so much that I flipped to the ebook from my library. Hated it still, so I went back to the audiobook and just pushed through. No, why did I do that to myself? The main characters, what are the names again? It's like the most ridiculous names ever. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's Roger and Dodger. Anyway, 2 kids. They're twins. That's their names, really. That's not off to a good start. But the magic system was so intriguing that I kept going. One of them is really fluent in like languages and the other one is numbers. So like the possibilities, but no, I really regret forcing myself to finish this book. Like, it's one of the reasons I now put down books when I'm not liking them, because I hated that one so much. So definitely a no for me. One that was definitely worth it is East of Eden. I was terrified of that book because it's 600 pages and it's like a chunky book too. My edition is like very, very heavy. It's a classic, modern classic, and everyone I know has given that book 5 stars. And like, I obviously want to give 5 stars to a book, but like, what if I don't like it? Like Dune, Everyone loves it and I hate it. Like, I don't want to be in that position, but this was fantastic. I do highly recommend it. It was worth the pages. I really enjoyed seeing the family relationship between like the brothers through different generations. I think the author's writing is fantastic. I really enjoyed the relationship with also the side characters. Some of them I really, really loved. And I do think there's some important life lessons in there. My only complaint is that I don't really like what happened with the female character, Katie. And the ending was a bit strange, but overall, definitely worth the pages. Definitely really enjoyed that one. It's worth the hype. It is big and scary, and again, classic, but push through. The first chapter, I was like, oh, I can't read that. It's too heavy, but it's just the first chapter. Afterwards, things pick up. So like, read it. Another one that I did not think was worth the pages is the first book of a trilogy. I cannot believe this is a trilogy, but The Passage by Justin Cotton. The first book felt like a trilogy, like straight up feels like there's 3 books because it's so like distinct. I could not have continued. Like, there's not enough money in the world. But like, really, I no, we'll never continue this series. But this is post-apocalyptic, which I used to be completely obsessed with. And no, kind of vampires, I guess. But yeah, I have nothing else to say. It's just not worth it. It's popular, or it used to be. I haven't heard anyone recently mention that they've read this and enjoyed it, but it's just too long. Like, the first book legit feels like a trilogy. It's 766 pages. It felt way too long. Way too long. So no, for me, it wasn't worth it. And then last but not least, another trilogy that the first one is 400 pages, but then it goes up with the rest of the series, but they feel very, very much longer than 400 and 600 pages. The Three-Body Problem. No, the trilogy is called The Remembrance of Earth, I think. But the first book is The Three-Body Problem. And This was the heaviest sci-fi series I've ever read. I've never read anything close to it. I've been asked so many times if I have anything similar to recommend. I don't. I wish I did, because my experience reading them was so all over the place. I ended up flipping with the audiobook. Usually I stay away from audiobooks for really heavy books like that, but I feel like it made the experience better. I would stay up at night, wide awake, listening to the audiobook because I needed to know. I don't even know how to explain the premise because it's so complicated and weird. But long story short, it's a first contact with aliens. That's all you need to know. It has some really heavy physics concepts in there. And you will probably hate the characters. I hated so many of them. The sexism is so bad in this series. Yet I kept going because the concepts are so fascinating. I don't even know what to say. It's just worth trying. And if you have anything to recommend that is similar, let us know. I'm willing to try other books like this, but so far this is the most unique thing I've ever read. I don't think I'll ever read anything quite like that. So fascinating, but heavy and sexist. These are the most extreme reactions that I've had. I've read a lot of really other big ones, like I'm thinking The Stand by Stephen King. The beginning was great. Afterwards, the endings always kind of suck with him. Same thing with It. Strong beginning, weird ass ending, a lot of like questionable content. So I feel like a lot of them that I've read in the last couple of years were kind of meh. They weren't not worth it. They weren't super worth it. But these are the most yes or no, in my opinion, out of the like 600 books that I've read on Booktube. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Thumbs up, subscribe. Let me know in the comment section what would be your opinions on the books that I've mentioned, but also if you have a list of books that you think were worth being really big and the ones that were not worth the pages. I will be putting on the screen more videos that I recommend you check out, including some short books recommendation because gotta balance things out a little bit. And also, I just posted a book haul. Who doesn't like a good book haul? So definitely check those out if you are interested. And I will see you in an upcoming video very soon. Bye.